Joe, I
Yeah,
think
good
you have
time.
spent a lot of time, and I think it is mainly because you are, I think, good with it, or you want to be good with it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, which is good, which is good. Okay, we need students like this, okay, who can take the initiative. So what I will do with all of you is I will add your name uh, in the server of the software. So you will receive an email on your student ID. Obviously, I will add your student IDs. So you will receive an email, and then they will ask you to, validate your account. And once you validate your account, like you have to select your password and so on, you log into the website and you can download the software and you can use it. But I think there are two things Qasim can confirm, that you need first of all AutoCAD to use it, and secondly I think it is with AutoCAD itself as well, that the computer should be good, right, Qasim?
Yes, yes. You can use AutoCAD or Civil 3D, both working well.
Sorry.
You can use both, either AutoCAD or Civil 3D. Both will work
Yeah,
well.
okay, okay.
Yeah, but you need a very good computer for it.
Hmm. Okay, so keep these things in mind. Okay, now we will move on. So thank you, Qasim, again. Now we'll move on to the lecture. What we were doing yesterday was looking at the process for designing the signal. It was a 12-step process, starting with the identification of the left turns. So today we'll go through the steps, and we'll see if we have time, then we can at least do one of the examples. Okay. So the first step is you identify the treatment of the left turns for all approaches of the intersection. It can be permissive or protected, or a combination of protected and permissive. Permissive means that you treat it like a right turn. So there is no separate phasing for that turn, and the vehicles are allowed to take the left turn if they do not find any opposing traffic or opposing pedestrians. Protected means they will turn when the signal is green, especially for them. And protected permissive means that during some timings of the day it will be protected, during some other timings of the day it will be permissive, or some movements will be protected, some movements will be permissive. Okay, so you can make a combination like this. Protected left turns usually have a higher capacity, okay, because you are protecting them, so drivers usually go at high speed, okay, when, because they know that the signal is especially for them, it is green for them, there is no other opposing movement. While if it is permissive, then drivers go more cautiously at lower speed, so the capacity of left turning will be less. But obviously when you are making it protected, that
Doctor,
means you are, yeah.
you are not sharing the screen.
I'm not sharing. I don't believe in sharing. Huh? Okay. So I was saying, when you make the left turning protected, you are obviously taking the time from the opposite approach. Okay, the some of the approaches will be having that time. Okay, so making the left turn protected increases their capacity, but you are reducing the time of the opposing movement. You have a total time of the signal, right? From that total time, you are giving some time for the left turning, and then you are giving some other time for the opposing through movement. Okay, so when you consider left turning, your opposing movement is this one. So if this is a left turning I am considering, the opposing movement is this one. Okay, so when I make the left turning protected, that means both these movements cannot have the green time at the same point. So I have to divide the available time between this one and this one. So it will reduce the time for the through movement. Okay. So when should we go for protected and permissive left turn? We have a criteria based upon volume. Okay, this is the main criteria, and then we have other criteria as well. I will talk about it, but the main criteria is based upon volume. So if the volume, left turning volume into the opposing volume, opposing through movement. Okay, so this volume A, let's say, and this volume B. Okay, so we are talking about A into B here. This is A and this is B. So A into B, if you have one lane opposing, okay, then A into B should be at least 50,000 to make it protected. Okay, and if you have two lane opposing, so here we have two lanes, then A and to B should be at least 90,000 to make it protected. And if you have three lanes, then it should be 110,000 to make it protected. Okay, so these are some values given for the volumes. So you take the volume of the left turning, multiply it with the volume coming from the opposite side. Okay, opposite side which can conflict with the left turning. Okay, so this one. So their product, their multiplication, if it is 50,000 or more with one opposing lane, you go for protected left turning, and 90,000 or more for two lanes opposing, go for protected, and so on. So this is mainly on the basis of volume. Then we have other criteria as well. For example, you feel the sight distance on that intersection is not enough to judge for the opposing traffic. Okay, so I cannot see who is coming from the opposite side until I am very close to the intersection. So in that case, giving a permissive left turn will have no effect. Giving a permissive left turn will have no effect, because the drivers, obviously, since they cannot see the traffic from the other side, they will come and stop at the intersection. Okay, so nobody will be nobody who is taking the left turn will be using that as permissive. Okay, they will come and they will stop because they cannot see the other side until they are totally clear. Okay, or at the stop line. So if the sight distance is a problem, obviously you have to make it protected. If the opposing vehicle, again this vehicle, is coming at a speed of more than 45 miles per hour, then it has high then it has a risk of high severity conflicts, high severity crashes happening at more than 45 miles per hour, usually have high severity. Then in that case you go for protected left turning. If you are providing more than one left turning lane, okay, so what will happen if you have two left turning lanes? Then the selection of gap will be difficult for the drivers, because, for example, these are two left turning lanes. Okay, then first of all, this left turning, the one which is towards the right, has a higher radius, has a higher turning radius. Okay, and this one will have a lower turning radius. Okay, and secondly, they can conflict with each other as well. Okay, maybe this guy comes here and he finds somebody is coming from the other side, and then he tries to avoid and gets into the way of the other driver. Okay, so he can go like this as well. Okay, so you can see how difficult and how dangerous it can be. Okay, so whenever you have more than one left turning lane, you should go for protected left turning, because then it will be difficult for the drivers to judge the gap on the basis of their own judgment. Okay, because the radius is different in both the lanes, the area is wider, and so on and so forth. And obviously, what we have discussed in the last topic as well, in the previous slides as well, that if you feel that there have been crashes involving left turns, and having a protected left turn will reduce these crashes, then you go for protected left turning. Okay, and here they are saying option C. Option C means combination of protected and permissive. You can use it to reduce the cycle time required for the signals. Okay, so if you make every left turn as protected, then the total timing of the signal cycle will be higher. Okay, if you make some of them as permissive, then the total time will be less, because these movements will not have any time in the signal. So the total timing of the signal will become less. Okay, but again, you can only do it if there are no safety concerns. Okay, so safety is the main issue here. So all these things, if you see, all these 5 reasons are related to safety. So we have one criteria which is related to volume, and then we have other 4 or 5 points which are related to safety. Okay, so safety is the main concern here, and this is why you must have seen in Bahrain that we are not using permissive left turn. Okay, because it can be confusing for the drivers and there can be safety issues. Then you identify the lane groups. I have already discussed the lane group and the movement groups in the previous slides as well. So lane group is all lanes. Lane group consists of all lanes which are having the same movements and thus having the same capacity. Okay, so the capacity of the movement will change if your assignment of the movement to that lane will change. Okay, so for example, this lane, the first one, will have different capacity than this one because this lane is incorporating 3 movements. Okay, and this one is only for exclusive left turn. Okay, similarly, this one will be different from both of them. The third one will be different from the first one as well as the second one because the movements are different. And again, the third and fourth will be different because although in both of them you can see through movement and the other one is shared, other turning is shared, but the third one is sharing the right turning and the fourth one is sharing the left turning. Okay, so their capacity will be different. Now this one, if they are in the same side, okay, I'm just trying to explain the difference. So if this lane and this lane are on the same approach, then both of them will be in the same lane group, right? Because they have same movements, exactly same movements. Okay, shared, through and right. Okay, so this one and this one can be together. Okay, similarly you can see 2 lanes having exclusive left turn, they can be together in the same lane group. Two lanes having exclusive through movement can be together. Okay, so lane group changes whenever you have a difference in the movement, and if the movements are the same, then the lane group remains the same. Then you find out lane group, the data for each lane group, and that data means find out volume, adjust the volume. Okay, adjust the volume to get the flow rate. How do we convert the volume to flow rate? I think I asked this question earlier as well. How do we convert the volume to flow rate? Yes, anyone?
We make it
Divide.
passenger car per hour per lane.
Volume to flow rate. I did not say anything about passenger cars.
We make it per lane, I guess.
No.
Divide by the
Divide by?
peak hour factor.
Peak hour factor, yes. Peak hour factor. Peak hour factor. Divide by peak hour factor. Okay, so adjusted volume means we divide by peak hour factor, and then you have the saturation flow rates, which we looked at in the previous topic as well, and then you calculate the volume to saturation flow rate ratios. Okay, then you have the, okay, then in one phase you may have different lane groups. In one phase you may have different lane groups. For example, if you come here, I think I told you earlier as well, the movement groups. The movement groups are those groups which must, which a movement group consists of the lanes which must go in the same phase. A movement group consists of lanes which must go in the same phase because they are sharing a movement. Okay, so for example, if you take this example, this one. So I have one movement group, I have 2 lanes, both these lanes have to be in the same phase because in both these lanes you have the through movement which is the same. So I cannot allow one lane in one phase and the other lane in the other phase because they are having a common movement. So there is one movement group and 2 lane groups. Okay, so if I assign a phase to this movement, the through movement, I will have both the lanes going in the same phase, but both of them have different capacities because they are sharing different movements. This one is sharing the left turn, this one is sharing the right turn, so their capacities are different, so saturation flow rate will be different for both of them. Okay, so you have 2 lane groups, both having different volumes and different saturation flow rates, so their volume to saturation flow rate ratio will be different. Okay, so for example, this one has a volume to saturation flow rate ratio of 0.1 and this one has let's say 0.15. Okay, so the critical one will be the one which is higher. So when you are designing this phase and you have multiple lane groups, you will take that lane group as critical which has the higher volume to saturation flow rate ratio. So in one lane, one phase, you can have multiple lane groups like I just showed you, and then from those you will identify the lane group which has the highest volume to saturation flow rate ratio. So we call it the critical lane group. The lane group which has the highest V upon S ratio is the critical lane group. Okay, then you would go for developing the phasing plan. I will show you with an example what are the things we can look for developing the phasing plan. But our main idea, our main aim is to minimize the V upon the summation of V upon S ratio for all phases. Okay, develop the phasing plan in such a way that when you add V upon S ratio for all phases, it is minimized. Okay, so you have to arrange movements in different phases so that when you add the V upon S ratio for each critical lane group for all phases, you will get the minimum value. Okay, so there can be different possible combinations, and from those combinations you will pick the one will give you the least summation of V upon S ratio. So they are giving some guidelines here, okay, that lane groups which have similar V upon S ratios can be put in the same phase. Obviously, it doesn't mean that you put east-west and north-south together. Okay, you put east-west through movement and north-south through movement together. It cannot be possible, right? So we are talking about those lane groups which are not conflicting with each other and their V upon S ratios are similar to each other. You can put them in the same phase. This is one way of minimizing the V upon S ratio. Okay. Preferable range of summation of V upon S ratio is 0.8 to 0.9. Preferable range for summation of V upon S ratio is 0.8 to 0.9. Okay, and obviously, if you reach 1 means what? Volume is exactly equal to saturation flow rate. Volume is exactly equal to saturation flow rate. That means most probably you cannot have any adequate signal timing plan. If summation of V upon S ratios reaches 1, that means you may not have any adequate signal timing plan. Why? What was saturation flow rate? Saturation flow rate means the maximum flow rate which you can pass through a lane when you have continuous 1 hour of green. Saturation flow rate is the maximum flow rate you can pass through a lane when you have continuous 1 hour of green. And I think I told you earlier as well, that is a theoretical value, a hypothetical value. Actually, you cannot have 1 hour of green, right? So if your volume is reaching the saturation flow rate, then how can you design it? Okay, I need this V upon S ratio to be less than 1, so I can have red timing and yellow timing and all these things. Okay, if both these quantities become equal, the ratio reaches 1, that means I need 1 hour of green. I cannot have that. I cannot have 1 hour of green, right? So most probably in that case you cannot have an adequate plan. Then you should try to change something, maybe change the number of lanes, change the phasing plan, or do something else. Okay, when you are developing the phasing plan, you have to code it. You have to code the movements. Okay, so first of all, we arrange the movements into rings. Okay, so each ring shows the movement from one side of the signal, from one face of the signal. Okay, face, F-A-C-E, face. Okay, so you can see a ring diagram here. Okay, so you can see this left turn and this left turn are from different sides of the signal. Okay, so they are in different rings. Okay, and similarly this one, different rings, and so on and so forth. Okay, when you are showing the movement with the bold line, that means it is protected bold movements means it's a protected movement, and dotted line means it's a permissive movement. So you can see the right turnings are permissive. Okay, or even yeah, so this is like a combination. So the left turning is permitted as well as protected in different phases. You can see here. This one is the left turning, right? This one is the left turning. So you can see this one is permissive here, but the same movement was protected here. So you can see the combination here. And obviously it depends upon you whether you want to give the combination or not. So the bold line means protected, dotted line means permissive, and if you have double-headed arrow, that means it's for pedestrian. If you have double-headed arrow, that means it is for pedestrian. Okay, so pedestrian movement, you can see it is allowed with the parallel through movement. See this one, pedestrian movement is allowed with the through parallel movement. So you are crossing east-west, so either you can cross it with this one or with this one. Okay, so in this case both are happening at the same time, so no problem. Okay, but keep one thing in mind, that it should be with the parallel through movement. Okay, then there are some notations given. Okay, always mark the movements or always code the movements on the major street first. So if this is the major street east-west, then you should number it first, then the minor street. Okay, secondly, the through movement has even numbers and the left turning has odd numbers. The through movement is coded with even numbers and the left turning is coded with odd numbers. So you can see it here, 6 through movement, left turning 1, and 2 through movement, left turning 5. Okay, for the right turning movement, we add 10 in the through coding of the through. Okay, so you can see through is 2, right turning is 12, through is 4, right turning is 14. Okay, and for the pedestrian movement, you provided with the movement of the through, you provided with the same coding as the parallel through movement, and then you put a P with it. Okay, so P means pedestrian. Okay, and you can see it is marked with a double arrow as well, so it is another indication. So for pedestrian movement, take the number of the parallel through movement and put a P with it. Okay, so that means pedestrian movement. So these are some notations for coding the movements when you are developing the phasing plan. Okay, then you must calculate the yellow and all red time. Okay, yellow we call it change interval, and all red is known as clearance interval. So why do we need yellow and all red times? We need yellow and all red times to make sure that the transition from one phase to another phase happens in a safe manner. You're going from one phase to another phase. So let's say we have phase for this movement, and then the next phase is for this movement. So the transition from this movement to this movement happens in a safe manner. So this is like a transition period. Yellow and all red is like a transition period. So yellow is provided for the driver who is in the dilemma zone. What is the dilemma zone? You can see here, and they have mentioned it here as well. Dilemma zone is that distance from the signal when the driver is too fast and very close to the signal at the time of transition. When the signal became yellow, at that time the driver was too fast and he was too close to the signal as well when the signal became yellow. So the dilemma zone the yellow time can include perception reaction distance and braking distance, or it can include distance to proceed through the intersection. Okay, you can see a dilemma zone mentioned here as well. So if you are at this much distance from the signal, you basically cannot stop. This distance is not enough for you to stop. The required distance for stopping is more than this. Okay, so this is what they are calling as x naught. So x naught is the distance up to which stopping is not possible before crossing the stop line. Okay, and then we have this one, which is sorry, this one is XC, I think. Yeah, C. This one is C and this one is X naught. Okay, this one is X naught. So X naught is that zone. If you are in that zone, then basically you cannot go. If you are in that zone, then basically you cannot go. Okay, so you should try to stop. Okay, and dilemma zone is somewhere when these two distances are overlapping. When these two distances are overlapping, this is what we call as dilemma zone. Okay, so the distance at which you cannot stop and the distance at which you cannot go, if there is an overlapping between them, that is a dilemma zone. Okay, I have a video which is showing something relative dilemma zone. Let me reshare it because I think you cannot listen to the sound.
You're nearing an intersection and the light turns yellow. Do you keep going and risk running a red light, or stop quickly and risk getting rear-ended? It's called the dilemma zone, the space between safe passage and a safe stop. In intersections with higher speeds or heavier truck traffic, decisions made in the dilemma zone can lead to crashes.
What we're trying to reduce are rear end and run through crashes, so T-bones that go through it.
WYDOT has been testing a new system which adjusts the timing of intersection lights based on approaching traffic.
It's a radar detection, and it tracks the vehicles. It's tracking where that car is or where that truck is. And if it's inside that zone, it says, okay, I'm going to keep this light green. Okay, if it's not inside that zone, it's either in front of it, which is way back, it can make a safe stop, or it's coming up and it can safely get through on the yellow.
The system has been used at 5 intersections so far with good results. More than 40 intersections are slated to have the technology installed over the next 3 years using federal highway safety funds. Remember, if there's ice and snow, take it slow and always buckle up. This is Doug McGee reporting.
Okay, so in that video, basically they showed, I think, just a few seconds of what is the dilemma zone, and this is what I was saying as well. The distance, you know, at which you are not sure whether you want to go or whether you can stop. Okay, so the distance between safely stopping and the distance between safely going. Okay, that is the dilemma zone, and they were showing a technology by which they have sensors on the road, and when the sensor sees that there's a vehicle in the dilemma zone, it will increase the timing of the yellow phase, the timing of the yellow, or the timing of the green, sorry. So if there's a vehicle in the yellow, if the vehicle is in the dilemma zone, so they have sensors which can increase the green time, so the vehicle can come out of the dilemma zone and then it will turn yellow. Okay. Then why do we give all red time? All red time is given for the vehicle which entered into the intersection from the transition of yellow to red. So the signal was yellow, you were at this point, so you entered the intersection and then the signal became red behind you. Okay, so you entered during yellow, there was no problem with you entering the intersection, but now we need to give you some time so that you can clear the intersection. Okay, so that you can clear the intersection. So that time is all red time. Okay, that time is basically all red time. Okay, so clearance interval, yellow plus all red is what we call as clearance interval. Okay, and we have the equation to calculate the clearance interval. Okay, so in this equation, we are using perception reaction time, initial speed of the vehicle, deceleration rate, gradient, and G is the gravity, obviously. W is the width of the intersection, so from stop line to stop line. Okay, so a stop line from here to stop line from here. Okay, stop line or whatever the other side of the intersection. So how much is this distance? This is W. Okay, and L is the length of the vehicle, S0 is the initial speed. These first two terms give you the minimum value of yellow time, and this last term gives you the minimum value of all red. So this equation gives you the total clearance interval from the total The first two terms are the minimum for yellow and the last term is the minimum for all red. Then you find out the lost time per phase. Lost time includes two things. We have a startup lost time and clearance lost time. Startup lost time, you can see in this figure as well. I have explained it in the traffic engineering course as well. The first few vehicles are going slowly. So the headway, when the signal becomes green, the first 3 or 4 vehicles in the queue, they take longer headway between them to pass the stop line. As you go along the queue, the remaining vehicles in the queue, the 5th and the 6th and so on, the remaining vehicles in the queue take lesser time to pass the stop line. Okay, so like lesser time meaning that their headway between them is less. The time interval between them is less. So the extra headway consumed by the first 3-4 vehicles in the queue is what we call as startup lost time. Okay, you can see it in this figure as well. The headways are being plotted, so you can see the first 3 or 4 headways are higher as compared to the remaining headways of the queue. So this is the minimum value, which we call a saturation headway, and the first 3-4 vehicles are consuming some extra amount of headway. This extra amount is known as startup lost time. And then we have the clearance lost time, which I've already explained to you, right? The clearance lost time is basically the red time, right? All red time. So clearance lost time is taken as 1 to 2 seconds. Startup lost time is normally taken as 2 seconds. So 2 plus 1 or 2 plus 2 will be 3 to 4 seconds for each phase. The phase time is given as G plus Y plus R, actual green plus Y, yellow plus all all red. Okay, effective green, which is when the vehicles are going at saturation headway, is given as green plus yellow plus all red minus the lost time. Okay, so lost time, small l, this is not an I, this is small l. Small l means lost time for each phase, and capital L means lost time for the whole cycle. So you take the lost time of each phase and you add all of them. Add the lost time for all the phases, you will get the total lost time. Okay, now sometimes you can have overlapping phases. In that case, you will add the lost time of only one of the phases. For example, see this one, this is overlapping phases, right? This one, phase 1 and phase 5, they are overlapping. Okay, they are happening at the same time. So I will not add the lost time for this phase and this phase. Okay, I will take one of them. Okay, if they are different, then I will take the higher one. If they are different, then I will take the higher one, or whatever is the critical lane group, I will take the lost time for that lane group, and that's it. Okay, so for phases which are overlapping, which are happening at the same time, you don't have to add the lost times for all of them. Okay, just take one of them which is more critical and you add that. Okay, so I think I will stop here and we will continue inshallah tomorrow. From tomorrow inshallah we will be following the Ramadan time. Okay, Ramadan Kareem in advance to all of you. Okay, if you have any questions, you may have some questions, I know, about the dilemma zone. But dilemma zone is a very complicated topic. Okay, I just try to explain to you in brief terms. So this is the zone in which the driver may decide to go or may decide to stop. Simply as simple as that. Okay, if you want to see more details, there are some lectures available on YouTube. Okay, but it's a very detailed topic. Okay, it may require a complete lecture on its own.